Hey everyone, I'm Ruben, and in the next few minutes I'm going to try and convince you to do a 2-week language challenge. I've talked to so many people who say things like, oh wow, languages, that's cool, I've always wanted to speak Spanish or Japanese or Chinese or French or Swedish or whatever. And they kind of put it off into this nebulous future. You've also probably heard that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And I think a 2-week language challenge is the best single step that you could take. So I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I think a 2-week challenge is optimal. Number 1 is a doable commitment. Number 2, you have a clear goal. And number 3, you're making a huge splash in the language. So number 1, doable commitment. It's just 2 weeks, and you're going to be able to focus on something for 2 weeks. In fact, because it's only 2 weeks, you're going to be able to kind of abstain from other distractions, other forms of entertainment for 14 days to really focus in on this one thing. I've also done longer challenges, and I know there's like 90-day and 100-day challenges and that kind of thing, but you can always start with 2 weeks, and if you like it and if it's going well for you, continue with more time. Number 2, it's a clear goal. Your goal is to study your brains out for 2 weeks and then post a video on YouTube to show your progress. I like to do a 2 to 3 minute long video in which I talk about myself. That's really also the best way to engage in conversation. Is you need to learn a few questions, you need to learn a few greetings, and if you can do those and talk about yourself and sort of anticipate some basic things that a native speaker might ask you, you're going to be able to engage in conversation with a native speaker and learn from that person. Otherwise, there's not really much to talk about. To have a limit of time is also a better way of measuring your progress. In other words, other measures of progress are so difficult to measure. For example, you could count the number of words that you know, I suppose, or how much of the language you understand, the percentage of the language you think you know. You could assess how high on the scales you've gone. But 2 weeks is 2 weeks. You're going to study for 2 weeks, you're going to post a video, you'll know how well you've done. Another good possible goal would be to have a standard test that you're aiming for. The JLPT is a Japanese standard test, and the HSK is a Chinese one. But 2 weeks is very clear. You'll know when you're starting and you'll know when you've reached your goal. Reason number 3 is the huge splash you're going to make in just 2 weeks. Some people say, like, why would you study for only 2 weeks? I say because that's much better than nothing. I'd rather speak a language badly than not at all. Not to mention, in those 2 weeks, you're going to hit all the basic stuff. You're going to learn all the pronouns, all the basic verbs, you're going to learn greetings, you're going to learn numbers. All of the important things about the structure of the language are going to be contained in those first 2 weeks. You're going to understand where to go from there. And the first 2 weeks are really fun too. There's a sense of discovery. Everything you come across is going to be new. You're going to be saying, oh, that's so different from my language. The more you study, the more things you will learn, obviously, but there's so much, everything is so new in those first 2 weeks, and your progress is just this huge rate of ascent. And really, I just think there are many languages that I would rather speak badly than not at all. And it's, for me, better to speak 3 languages poorly than 1 language a little bit better. If you think about studying 1 language for 6 weeks versus 3 languages for 2 weeks, definitely you're going to learn many more new things in those with 3 languages rather than 1. That's because of the nature of common language forms and the utility, the high usefulness of all those initial things that you study. So let me tell you a little bit about my past and future experiences with a 2-week challenge. The first one I ever did was a few years ago with my brother. We did an Arabic challenge, and this just kind of popped into our heads. We had no reason to do 2 weeks, but we did it. We both went through it. You should check out the video of that. That was in Arabic, which is still, I claim, is the hardest language in the world. I've done other time lengths. I did a month of Italian. I did a year of Chinese, although I did post a video after 2 weeks, so you should check that out. I've done Farsi and Tagalog. I did also 5 weeks, I think, of the Scandinavian languages, Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish. And every time, it's just such a thrill. I can't do this, I can't sustain this all the time because I have other hobbies and other interests. Right now, though, I'm on summer vacation, so in a few days I'll be posting a new language challenge, 2-week challenge, with a special guest also, not my brother. So if I've convinced you to do a 2-week challenge, here are my recommendations for you. Schedule it ahead of time. Plan out 2 weeks on the calendar when you're going to be able to focus on these things. Don't do this, say, at the beginning of the school year or when you're moving to a new apartment or something. Just make sure it's a 2-week block that you think you can focus. Push everything else that is optional to the side and focus on this thing. You should also collect some materials ahead of time. I'm a big fan of cheap language books. Hippocrene, Colloquial, Teach Yourself, Living Language, Berlitz. I think they're all going to get the job done if we're talking a 2-week period. Watch lots of videos on YouTube or other sources online. I also recommend lingq.com, LINGQ.com. That's great for getting a lot of reading practice along with the sounds of the language. You can also read Benny Lewis's Fluent in 3 Months, which is a great book with tons of ideas in it, and I did a video review of that book also. Now, of course, everyone's different, but there are certain ways to study that are better than others. Do not try to get a novel and think that you can just read it and pick up all of the language that you need to be able to post a video 2 weeks later. That doesn't match up with your goal. You're going to be learning words that just nobody uses. Much better is to get, say, 2 different language books and study the first 3, 4, 5, 6 chapters of both. You're going to find that that information that overlaps is very important information. Anything that you hear more than once, you should pay attention to. So another thing you want to think about is sort of learning things that are going to help you to learn. Learning phrases such as, could you repeat that, or would you write that down for me, or does that mean this? Questions to clarify and to elicit more information from a native speaker. Asking someone to speak slowly, explaining that you are a new learner, for example, will help you to learn more things. Likewise, reading in the language is going to help you to learn more. Now, listening is also something you need to work on, because sometimes you'll study some words and you think you know them, but then when you hear someone use them in real life, they go right past you. And then later on you realize, oh, they said some words that I already knew. I should have recognized those. Then you missed that opportunity to learn whatever else they were saying. So it's really important to work on listening, to include this listening practice as part of your training. And you know that chapter in every language book about booking a hotel room? You know, the one with the queen bed and the hot shower, and if breakfast is included. You should probably skip that chapter, just because that's not really going to help you to get to your goal of making a video in 2 weeks. And just not that useful. Most likely you're going to find a hotel that has someone who speaks English. It's better to put your efforts into other forms of the language, other uses of the language. So hopefully I've convinced you to try a 2-week challenge. If you've ever said, I'd love to learn that language someday, start with 2 weeks. Study like crazy for 2 weeks. Post a video of your progress. That's going to propel you onwards. Or you'll realize that was fun and then move on. Maybe try a different language or something else. But it is such a great sort of runway to get up to speed in the language really quickly, explore, start to explore that language. It's a really great experience. So look forward to my next video. It should be coming out in a few days, and thanks for watching.